Hi, everyone, and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to kind of hold out for another minute or two and see if there's a few more people that are joining. We have hundreds of people here tonight, and I'm just absolutely delighted. So we'll jump into the information really quickly. I want to make sure that you have takeaways that you can start today to help optimize your cognitive function. So there's a ton to go over. You're in the right spot if you've signed up for a detox and organic lifestyle webinar tonight. So I'm going to share with you what I've learned from my clinical practice, what we've learned from the research, what we've learned from Marama, the residential care facility for the elderly here in San Diego, California, where we support people in optimizing their cognitive function. I think many of you maybe found out about me through the Reverse Alzheimer's Summit that we just hosted in June. And it was such a privilege to be able to put that together, to interview such incredible people like Dr. Stephen Gundry, Dr. Bredesen, of course, Dr. Perlmutter, and so many others who showed up to share their expertise and insights with us. It was really, really fun. And I feel just delighted to get to share that information with everyone. And I hope that you got a lot out of it. And tonight, my goal is to help you just even deepen that knowledge so that you can put this into practice. I've seen over and over again that Dr. Bredesen's work works, that applying functional medicine and his approach in a very systematic way, whether at home, clinically, or in a residential setting, it can work and we can watch miracles happen. So don't worry, there's going to be a replay available, and I'm going to give a 30-minute presentation and give you some really valuable takeaways. And then at the end, I'm going to answer questions. So any questions you have, please put them in the Q&A. And please also, I invite you to introduce yourselves in the chat. Part of what we're doing here is building community. It's really letting people who are struggling either with cognitive decline and looking for answers, and also people who are caring for someone with Alzheimer's, letting you know that you're not alone, that there are other people in this with you. There are other people whose valuable knowledge and insights we can learn from, we can put to work, whether it's a resource or a new perspective, or maybe a supplement, something that's helped someone out there. A research trial, something that where you can get involved, you can learn something, and you can share your experience and give other people the benefit of that. So thank you again for joining us. I'm going to go ahead and get started. So first, I want to just make the very bold statement that in my clinical experience, what I have seen is that Alzheimer's is optional. That for anybody who doesn't already have a diagnosis, who isn't so far severely affected, we have choices that we can make, and nearly everyone can prevent dementia. And the vast majority of people, even severe Alzheimer's patients, can get some improvement. And the earlier we intervene, the earlier we get a chance to apply the Bredesen approach to those suffering with cognitive decline, the faster we see results, the more confidence I have. And so I want everyone to start early. So even if you aren't noticing any decline, but you're here because you want to prevent, you're in the right place. All of these things can be applied no matter where you are on the spectrum of cognitive decline. And more often than not, we see results. What I notice keeps people from getting the benefit of the Bredesen approach is that it feels complicated. It feels overwhelming. Even to people with full cognitive capacity, like myself, I would put myself in that category. It takes a while to implement these things. And I do it with you. I live this lifestyle, so I know what it takes to get on a ketogenic diet, to detoxify your environment, to declutter it, to do the things that it takes to stimulate your brain and stay active physically and mentally, to prioritize sleep when it feels like there's so much else to do. I get what it's like to be in that situation. And we have really worked in our research platform, our residential platform, and the clinical platform, as well as these educational offerings like this webinar, like the summit. And I am working with the team at Harper Wave to write a book. So through that, what I am trying to do, the whole purpose of my life's work is to make this accessible so that people can do this and implement it and get the benefits of the Bredesen protocol. So we have support here to help you get the benefits of this. So this week, what we're talking about is detoxification. This is one of those foundational pieces. If we're putting toxins into our brain, into our bodies, it's going to be really hard to have optimal cognitive function. What I love about toxins is, one, once you check that box, what do you evaluate? Do I have it? Do I not? Am I getting rid of it? Am I using my emunctories or my organs of elimination to optimally reduce that toxic burden in my system? If we can check that box, we can move on to other much more fun things around activities and exercise, the great diet, and communication and how we relate to others. That we know that social isolation is one of the known modifiable risk factors when it comes to cognitive decline and Alzheimer's. And there's lots we can do about it, including how we choose to communicate with the people around us, whether they have dementia or not. So welcome. Thank you again for joining us. I'm so delighted that you're here. And let's get started on this detox weekend. I want to just introduce sort of my background. I've explained that I have residential, that Marama is our residential care home here in San Diego, California, where we have an immersive experience. This is a picture of Dr. Bredesen celebrating that open house with us in February of 2020. And I also have Solsere, which is the clinic where I treat patients who have dementia a few days a week. And I have a team of doctors and health coaches here who do the same. Here at Solsere, we also conducted a research project that I'll go into a little bit more detail around. And then in addition, I had the privilege of hosting the Reverse Alzheimer's Summit, and I need to update the slide with the 2023 lineup of amazing, incredible speakers. It's so much fun. We've been doing it annually, and I just feel so privileged to be amongst these really esteemed colleagues sharing this great information at the cutting edge of what's possible for brain health. So the clinical trial, this is really exciting and fun news. I don't think I even shared this in the summit. If you listen to some of those, we were waiting to hear back from the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease. And sure enough, right as the summit launched, we had our paper accepted at the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease. So it's a peer-reviewed clinical trial. It was a feasibility trial to show that we could, in fact, treat an elderly population with MoCA scores, or these Montreal Cognitive Assessments, that show us there's measurable decline. So we see that people have measurable cognitive impairment, and that was how they entered into the study. They needed to have that in cognitive impairment. They couldn't have perfect cognitive function, otherwise we wouldn't notice a difference. And then we took 23 participants through a 6-month intervention, and we saw a significant measurable increase in memory and overall cognition. So we see this in the science. This is one of several papers like this that has been published. I am adding to the, the foundations that were set there by Dr. Bredesen and others that came before me. But this paper was a really, I hope, is a good contribution into the Alzheimer's research, and that this will then be taken and other people will do randomized and controlled trials. We will be able to prove out that this is actually working and give people the confidence to try these things at home. So super, super exciting stuff in terms of the research. And if you have anybody in your world who's maybe a little bit of a naysayer saying that it's not working for them to, that there's no research that suggests that the Bredesen approach would work. Well, I want you to know that there is in fact research. We've just published a paper in the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease supporting this work. And last year, there were 2 papers published by Dr. Bredesen's team. The one on the left, very similar intervention to what we did in my clinic, but they did a 9-month intervention, and their participants were slightly less cognitively declined, and 84% of them improved. In our clinical trial, 73.9, or about 74% of participants improved, but we had 3 months less to work with them. And we also had more measurably declined patients to start with. So you might expect about a 10% difference in our confidence. On the right is a paper that was published by my dear friend, Dr. Ram Rao, who's also on the Apollo team with Dr. Bredesen. And what they showed was that just using Apollo, an online interactive support program for the RECODE protocol designed by Dr. Bredesen, 51% of participants enrolled in Apollo improved. And this was without the very high touch that both clinical trials had with a doctor and health coaches and more support. However, 51% of participants improving in terms of cognition is better than any medication on the market. This is huge. And what I want to share with you tonight is we're just scratching the surface. We're going to talk about one piece of how you can do this at home. So I think a lot of people get it, right? Like, okay, there's multiple papers, there's lots of science, plenty of science to get started, especially because the risk is low. So what do we do? So let's dive into what a day at Marama looks like. So part of what we're doing is it's these behaviors, right? It's what we choose to eat. It's what we put in our mouths. It's how much exercise we get. It's at what time we decide to go to bed. It's the environments that we expose ourselves to. It's the relationships that we're in. Those are the things that make a really big impact on cognitive function. So at the senior living facility at Marama, what we've done is we've designed a day that helps support your cognition from start to finish. And the reason I share this with you here is because I want you to be able to do this at home. So when you can see kind of how we set up our day for people who are cognitively impaired living at Marama, I want you to imagine, how can I do a little bit more of these things at home? So get out your camera, take a picture of this. There will be a replay. You'll get access to this later. But this is a framework for how you might think about applying this research at home. And when we designed these clinical trials, we took snippets from different areas, right? We know that exercise supports cognition. We know that a ketogenic diet and an organic diet supports cognition. So that's what we offer at breakfast, lunch, dinner, 2 snacks a day. We also know that having a fast between our last bite of food and going to bed is a great way to get better sleep, better digestion, and is going to help us prevent cognitive decline. We also know, of course, physical activity and creative endeavors. These things also support healthy cognition. That engagement, as I mentioned, social isolation is one of the modifiable risk factors. So finding ways to engage socially, maybe engage outside, get outside and get that connection to nature, get movement and get creativity. All of these things can help us emphasize and help us support our cognition naturally. So one of the people who moved into Marama, Judy, moved in May of 2020 with her husband. And when she first moved in, the reason she moved in, her daughter was driving back and forth down from LA and worried that they were going to burn the house down. They were missing appointments with contractors and they clearly weren't able to keep up with the house. And this was in the midst of COVID. So their daughter was very concerned about her and was excited about the opportunity to just have her life back, not have to be commuting back and forth for several hours in the car to come check on her parents, and also not have the worry that something bad was going to happen. And so she described to us when you know, now here we are a few years later and Judy's still living at Marama. My daughter would come to Marama with me, and during COVID, she would be outside. So I'd walk in and Judy would say, "You have a child, don't you? Is it a boy or a girl? What's her name? How old is she?" And then she'd tell me all about her daughter and raising her daughter. A couple minutes later, she'd say, "You have a child, right? How old is she? Is it a boy or a girl? What's her name?" And then she'd tell me more stories about her daughter. So always the sweetest, just such a kind, wonderful soul. We love her. And inquisitive, you know, very engaging, but forgetful and confused often. And that was really hard on her daughter, right? She wouldn't remember things that they had talked about. Her daughter was concerned and often frustrated having conversations and having to repeat herself. Well, fast forward to just, a few weeks ago, I ran into Judy and she was asking me about my daughter by name. She knew how old she was and was asking if she was riding a bike because she remembered her daughter learning to ride a bike around that age. And it was just a world of difference to have a conversation with somebody who's fully present and remembers, right? Her daughter is having the same experience. She'll admonish her daughter when she repeats something twice. "Oh, you told me you're coming on Saturday already," and finishing her sentences. And the quality of their relationship has changed profoundly. So her daughter doesn't just have her life back, she has her mom back. And these are the types of miracles that we see over and over again at Marama and in my clinical practice. So again, how do we get there? Let's go to detox basics. So again, this is a wordy slide. Take your phones out, take a picture of this if you need to. I'm going to walk us through it because these are things that I think that you can be doing today at home. Number one with detox. So first of all, what's happening? If we have toxins coming into our brain, coming into our bodies, it's taking up bandwidth. It requires more nutrients to get them out. It's creating inflammation and triggering potentially beta amyloid plaque production. Things are going to tau proteins and tangles that are going to get in the way of those connections between our neurons so that we can remember where we set our phone down or where we put the screwdriver or what that neighbor's name is. All of these things that maybe are harder to come by later on in life sometimes have to do with the accumulation of toxins in the system, and particularly in the brain. We know that things like Roundup, which is found on conventionally grown foods, glyphosate is the primary ingredient in Roundup, and it is directly neurotoxic. We know that heavy metals like mercury are directly neurotoxic. We also know that many of the chemicals that we might put on our skin or use to clean, these personal care products and cleaning products, can also be very toxic. Alcohol can be very, very toxic to our brain. And when we eliminate many of these things, all of a sudden, our cells at the cellular level, we have more energy. We have the ability. We don't have so much to overcome. There isn't this hurdle of trying to detoxify that becomes almost insurmountable so that the brain can't create new neurons or create new connections between them. So how do we get rid of toxins? Step number one, this is where I start with every single patient, every single resident at Marama. If you are not having a daily bowel movement, we need to talk. We need to do something about that. And there are great options in terms of supplements and working directly with the provider to figure out how you can have at least one bowel movement a day. This is essential to healthy detoxification. You can also, if you know that you've been exposed to certain toxins, you can consider things like clay or charcoal or chlorella. Spirulina sometimes comes up, or bulking agents like psyllium that might help with constipation as well. Fiber can often help, and sometimes magnesium oxide or magnesium citrate at low doses, or go slowly. The side effect is diarrhea. So go slowly and add a little bit of magnesium, and that can help you have regular bowel movements. And then these binders, I think of kind of like a catcher's mitt. When your liver detoxifies things, it spits it out through the bile, which goes to the gallbladder. And then when you eat, that bile is released into the gut. And what we want to do is catch that bile, catch those toxins, that toxic sludge, and then eliminate it through a bowel movement. And so those binders can really help us to do that. And many of my patients report a clearing of brain fog, a more clear-headed, more focused, more attentive, more energetic mental state after binders, directly after taking binders. So this is a really, really helpful thing to do and think about, particularly if you're someone who's struggled with constipation and you haven't had a daily bowel movement. This is a great way to get started and use your organs of elimination that are designed to help you detoxify. So the liver is another detox organ. And the liver, I mean, the body just absolutely impresses me all the time. I just can't get over it. So the liver will actually stop phase 1 metabolism. It has 2 stages of metabolism and detoxification. So if you have toxins floating around in your blood, they're going to end up at your liver at some point. And in that process, it goes through multiple steps. Well, the rate limiting step is typically the second step. And it's often because we don't have enough nutrients. We don't have the B vitamins, or we don't have the cysteine to make glutathione, or we don't have the B vitamins or the amino acids that we need to get through phase 2 detox in the liver. And so in the body's just absolutely incredible wisdom, it will stop phase 1 because it doesn't have enough to get through phase 2. And often that intermediate step is even more toxic than whatever you swallowed. This comes up with alcohol. So when you drink alcohol, we all know that it's somewhat toxic, right? But the reason we get hungover is because of acetaldehyde. And that's that middle step. That middle biochemical compound is actually more toxic than the initial one that we drank. And that is what gives us that hungover feeling, or that headache, or that sluggishness, or that pain and achy pain. And so what we want to do is make sure that we have plenty of phase 2 support so that we can keep phase 1 and phase 2 both going smoothly and eliminate these toxins. So pretty much every supplement company out there, I really like Pure Encapsulations. I really like Integrative Therapeutics. I love Zymogen. These companies all have a phase 2 liver support or a liver detox product that can help you get basically a multivitamin to support the liver and get rid of those toxins more easily. Phosphatidylcholine is another thing that comes up that's both healthy for the brain and really helpful for detox. And this is something that is another thing that you can discuss with a provider, find a dose that works for you to help keep those toxins moving. Of course, eliminating toxins like alcohol, pesticides, herbicides, and then we have herbs. We even have foods, things like artichoke, beets, dandelion, bitter greens. All of these things have a bunch of those great nutrients, minerals, and the herbs themselves are very helpful and healing to the liver. We know the liver regenerates, but only to a point. We got to take care of it so that it can fully do its job. And then the kidneys. So the kidneys are a third organ of elimination. And kidneys, what we want to do to support them is get enough good filtered water from stainless, glass, or ceramic, no plastic. So whenever we drink from plastic, it might have been in the sun, it might have leached into the water. Also those screw caps, there's just microplastics getting in there. We don't want to be drinking that because it harms our system. It is toxic. So what I highly recommend is finding either spring water. There's findaspring.org or maybe findaspring.com. Findaspring.org, I'm pretty sure, has great sources of good, clean spring water. You can also purchase it. But eliminating plastic water bottles, really focusing on getting them out of clean containers and getting enough. So I typically recommend for most of my patients, as long as you don't have a kidney issue, about half your body weight in ounces. So if you weigh 150 pounds, you're looking for about 75 ounces of water a day. And this, I tend to drink this Mountain Valley, and this is 33 fluid ounces. So you'd be looking for about 2.5 of these, give or take. So that hopefully that gives you a good sense of like, how can I stay hydrated? How can I get enough water so that I'm getting rid of as many of the water soluble toxins as possible? What we want to think about is distributing the toxins amongst these organs. They're working together, they're collaborating. And if we're not drinking enough water, well, now there's more stress on the liver. Now there's more stress on the skin and lymph. Maybe there's more stress on the lungs to detoxify these things. If we can distribute the toxins, help each of these organs optimally detoxify, then there's not going to be too much of a burden on any one of them, and all of your cells are going to benefit from that clean system. So the fourth organ of elimination to talk about is the skin and lymph. There are so many fun things that we can do here, including dry skin brushing, sweating, using a vibration plate that'll kind of shake us, or a chi machine that it creates this little vibration in our cells and our system that moves the lymphatics. So the lymphatics, they tend to run parallel with the veins, and the lymphatics are responsible for not only our immune function. We might think of like our lymph nodes getting swollen when we have an infection. Well, they're also taking out the trash. They're taking out those bigger molecules that don't necessarily go back through the capillary beds into the veins, into the venous system to be delivered to the liver. They take those bigger molecules through the lymph nodes and through the lymphatic vessels, and then dump that into the liver. So it's another way that we move our toxins out of the system. There's a glymphatic system in the brain, and that also dumps into the liver via this lymphatic system. And the difference between the circulatory system, our arteries and veins, and the lymphatic system is that the arteries and veins, it has a heart, there's a pump. With the lymphatics, we've got to move. So if we're not moving, we're not going to move our lymphatics. We're not going to get those toxins delivered to the liver to be eliminated. So using lymph massage, potentially hydrotherapy, contrast hydrotherapy, going back and forth from hot to cold, even just the pressure of being in water can help to move the lymphatics back towards the liver. Using extra herbs to help the skin and lymph. There are things like potentially phytolacca, there's a gallium, there's a whole host of wonderful herbs that can be used, and many of them, you'll see them labeled lymph support or skin support. And so using these to our advantage to help us move, again, take the burden off the liver, off the bowels, off the kidneys, and get it out through sweating, through the skin. Sweating, our skin is a primary detox organ. Many people will tell me, oh, I don't sweat. And that happens if we go from our 73-degree house to our 74-degree car to our 72-degree office. We don't have the temperature fluctuations. And it's great for, of course, for detox, but also the nervous system, the immune system, for us to heat our body and cool it, heat it and cool it. This idea is the hormetic effect, where a little bit of stress on the system actually creates more resilience. And so that's a theme that we'll come back to over and over again with exercise and with the diet, is this concept of hormesis, where we stress the system a little bit, in this case with temperature, hot and cold, but we get more resilience, we get better function. So if you haven't been sweating regularly, I encourage you to think about heading to a sauna or getting vigorous exercise that helps you to sweat. In the Northern Hemisphere, if you happen to be here, it's summer and it's hot in a lot of places. So it's a little bit easier to take advantage of that right now. Get outside, maybe put on an extra layer, get your sweat on, and then rinse, because there's going to be toxins in that sweat. So if anybody goes to hot yoga or goes into the sauna, I highly recommend get that sweat off right away afterwards. You can rinse with cool water. It doesn't have to be cold, but cool water will help you to eliminate those toxins, get them off your skin so that they're going down the drain rather than back in through your pores. It'll also close up the pores when you have that contrast between hot and cold. And then don't forget, replace your electrolytes, because when you do sweat, you're going to get rid of some minerals that way. So having some coconut water or even a little bit of sea salt in water, this can help you to replete those electrolytes so you're not too exhausted or depleted afterwards. When I present these organs of elimination, even to my colleagues, a lot of people forget that the lungs are a detox organ. So detox organ number 5 is exhaling. We can eliminate toxins in our system through an exhale. This is why, again, alcohol comes up. It's a common toxin in our society. But this is why a cop can pull you over and use a breathalyzer. They're looking for the toxins that you're eliminating through your lungs after drinking. And this is true with many toxins. So there are detox breath work. There's lots of resources on YouTube and online. There's classes in my neighborhood. They're popping up everywhere, where you can go to a detox breathwork class at a yoga studio, other places like how to do that. And I want to just bring it up because it's this unsung hero of detox. It's so helpful for eliminating toxins. And again, we want to diversify how we get rid of them, spread that burden, and optimize the detox process. So thinking through environmental medicine and sometimes what we call detox medicine, we're thinking about the environment that we're in, what toxins we're being exposed to, what's coming in, and then how to get them out. And 75% of environmental medicine is stopping the exposure. So this means avoiding alcohol, avoiding chemical toxins, eating organic, avoiding heavy metals, and maybe even getting them out of the amalgams out of your mouth, avoiding fish that have high levels of mercury in them, like swordfish or shark, and avoiding moldy environments where maybe mycotoxins have been breeding. More molds have been breeding and the mycotoxins have been generated. So these are things that we can think about as how do we stop that exposure that might be creating inflammation, that might be harming my brain. Personal care products are another place where people can be exposed, and as well as cleaning products. One of the common ones that comes up is like the air fresheners with those, with the they're non-natural scents. They're very artificial scents. And those can, through the olfactory nerve, can go into the brain and trigger inflammation. They're very noxious and can be quite harmful, especially for people who are sensitive, as many Alzheimer's patients tend to be when they get older, or when they progress in the disease process. So identifying these, understanding where they're coming from in your life, in your world, and then using those natural organs of elimination to help to support the detox process in a gentle, healthy, natural way, so that there's. So I'm excited. I hope that I have, please, in the Q&A or in the chat, I'd love to hear from you how you are imagining you might put some of this information to work today. Let me know. So I want to share another example of a patient who I had the good fortune of seeing here at Solseri. He came in with a MoCA score of 16. So a MoCA score is the Montreal Cognitive Assessment, and it's a way that we put a number on the degree or severity of cognitive decline. So a perfect score is a 30, 26 and above is normal. He had significant cognitive decline. He had a 16 out of 30. So once you get to like a 2 or 3, people are almost nonverbal. At 16, he could answer with a full sentence, but he had severe short-term memory loss. His executive function in terms of being able to shop and cook and care for himself at home, he was really struggling. And so we noticed when we did his labs that he had high burden of toxins. This test is a mycotoxin test. And we see that his ochre toxin here on the left, top left, was actually to this day at the highest level of ochre toxin I have ever seen. And it was in combination with several of very high levels of aflatoxin and gliotoxin. And you can see that just 3 months later, I saw him first in September of 2020, and in January of 2021, a significant decline in his mycotoxin levels. And with it, we see his MoCA score was also starting to turn around. We were getting an improvement in just 3 months. What we typically expect with MoCAs is a 2 to 3 point drop in the MoCA score. So typically, if you see a neurologist or most conventional providers, they'll expect that you will decline over the course of a year by 2 to 3 points in this MoCA. And what we saw was a miracle. I mean, it was incredible. He was significantly better in just 3 months. And a big part of that was supporting his detox and elimination, and also getting him out of a moldy environment. And in this case, switching him to an organic diet. So he had been eating a diet that was full of wheat and rice and soy, lots of carbohydrates and lots of highly processed things that were full of grains, corn and wheat, and things that are heavily sprayed with Roundup. They're genetically modified. And his glyphosate levels reflected that. So his glyphosate level was over 5, well over 5. And again, in just 3 months, that significantly came down. We expect this is water soluble. You can use glycine and glyphosate. They sound similar because they biochemically are somewhat similar, and they can take the place of each other in a protein. Glycine is an amino acid, and sometimes glyphosate can be substituted for it, and it creates a protein that doesn't work as well. And this can affect the nervous system. So we want to get rid of this. And sure enough, with this patient, we dropped that down significantly. And again, you can see that with it, his MoCA score was coming up. His story is so great because his daughter was living in the Midwest and she was moving back to California to support him. She was essentially concerned he wasn't going to be able to live independently. So they were all going to move into his house. She was bringing her family. They were uprooting their lives, taking their kids out of school, moving back to California to care for her dad. And she was feeling, as you might imagine, she was feeling overwhelmed and stretched, and she had work and she had her kids to take care of, and she's in a relationship and now she's moving. And it felt like a lot, and she was feeling pretty overwhelmed. Well, by the time she moved here, he was actually ready to help her with the kids, be present with them, be available to them. So it wasn't only that he wasn't going to be her dependent, another dependent that she already was feeling overwhelmed taking care of the ones she had, he became a resource. He became a support to her. And watching that transformation, again, it's just like the most fulfilling, most incredible privilege to get to see people turn this around. This disease that so many people are told is a prescription for or a inevitable decline, that there's no prescription that's going to be helpful. That isn't true. It's factually inaccurate. I've just watched it too many times. I've seen too many people recover cognitive function in meaningful ways. Now, he didn't go back to work, but he was able to help her. He was able to engage with his grandchildren in a way that he wouldn't have been able to if he had just stayed with the conventional approach, which was kind of a do-nothing approach. And seeing this, it warms my heart and inspires me to show up every day and to share with all of you how to do this, what to do, and how to get these amazing results. So detoxifying sugar, this is a little teaser for our week on keto that's going to happen week 3, so 2 weeks from now. And what we want to do in the brain, sugar can become toxic itself. Dr. Bredesen calls this glycotoxicity. It's a type of dementia. So type 3 dementia and type 3 Alzheimer's is the toxic type of dementia. And then he has another one that is glycotoxicity. And I think this is just because it's so prevalent in our society. You might have heard Alzheimer's called type 3 diabetes. And this is because that toxic sugar, it's like when you caramelize onions, you can create these glycation end products, or these advanced glycation end products that are destroyed cells. Essentially, they're caramelized cells that no longer work. This is part of why people with diabetes lose their vision. They can sometimes have toes amputated. And in the brain, inflammation is happening there too. It's damaging the tissue. Insulin itself, high levels of insulin itself. So if you have high levels of sugar for a long time, that directly has a negative impact on cellular function. Then what comes right behind that is high levels of insulin, and then insulin resistance. And that insulin itself has toxic effects as well. And so you can't just solve this problem by adding insulin. As much as I wish with Alzheimer's, with diabetes, with all of these chronic complex diseases, I wish there were just a pill that I could give people. I wish there was just an IV that you could take and all the suffering would go away. It's not that easy, but it's doable. And what we can do is, again, our bodies are just so incredibly miraculous. We can change the fuel. We're like hybrids. We can go from burning glucose for fuel to burning fat for fuel. And we don't lose sensitivity to burning fat for fuel. So the other word you'll hear, so sugar and carbohydrates, that's kind of the same thing. This might be, yes, it could be fruit. Fruit isn't bad. We'll get to that later, but it might be fruit, anything that raises your blood sugar. So chocolate and, well, if it has sugar in it, candy, of course, but not just that. It's also the bread. It's also the pasta. It's all of those processed carbohydrates. It's the corn chips. It's anything that raises your blood sugar is a carbohydrate or a sugar. Sometimes they say sugar and people are like, no, bread's not sugar. Essentially, rice, bread, pasta, the carbohydrates, once they hit your stomach, it's all sugar. It's all glucose. So I'll use that interchangeably: carbohydrate, sugar, glucose. And then on the other side, we have the ability to make ketones out of fat. So good, healthy fats, like you see in this picture, avocados and salmon and olive oil, these are really a super fuel for the brain. And what happens is when your brain has the option to burn sugar or fat for fuel, it will preferentially choose fat. And you may have heard my conversation with Dr. Stephen Gundry. He's a nerd in the best possible way. He's thinking through some really unique mechanisms around why this is so much better for the brain. And essentially, he's proposing this uncoupling in the mitochondria that makes the fuel burn a lot cleaner. So you have less oxidative stress and less inflammation in the brain. Many people who get onto a ketogenic diet will experience a sharpening of their cognition. They'll experience more energy, better sleep, and improvements overall in brain fog and cognitive function. And in fact, there's research showing this, which is part of why we included it in our research, and we include it at Marama. So really, really exciting stuff. And a relatively simple way. There's lots of, support online. In fact, so many people, I can't tell you how many people have come into my office as a patient and shown me Dr. Bredesen's book, dog-eared and highlighted and underlined and scratches in the notes in the margin, and said, I've made so much progress with this book alone. I want to take it to the next level. And so when there's a whole spectrum of support on this. It's hard, it's challenging, even for people with full cognitive function. And there's lots of support out there for you. So get that support. I want everybody to do as much of this as possible, because there's so much suffering in the world happening associated with Alzheimer's that doesn't have to be. And it just makes me so mad. But all we can do is more, and share this information, share it with your friends, share it with your family. Find that keto recipe book or share those recipes online, get in the Reddit chat and wherever you need to be to get the support you need to put this into action. This ketogenic diet that I'm describing is high in veggies, super high in veggies, super high in good fats. I'm not talking about bacon and cheese all day, every day. Not talking about that. We're talking about really good plant forward, healthy, great diet that's also very satisfying, super delicious, and relatively easy to do at home. So don't get caught up in it's going to be too complicated, or I'm going to have to spend more money or go to new stores. It really can be quite simple and straightforward, and there's tons of resources for you. And I'm going to go through more of that in 2 weeks. But why are we doing it? We're detoxing our brain from sugar. And this often feels like a detox, like you might think of people going to the Betty Ford Center or wherever they do drug detox. Sugar is a drug, and many of us are physiologically addicted to it. And so we will have intense craving. We will feel super moody. We will feel achy, have that keto flu, and having that great support around you, knowing to expect that, knowing what you can do to mitigate it. These are all things that we can help support you with. And other people can as well. So if you can take the bull by the horns and do this yourself, go for it. Detoxing your environment is another way to think about toxicity. So we talked about using our organs of elimination to get the toxins out at the cellular level, at the body level. We've talked about detoxing from sugar, using diet to detoxify. And now I want to take the conversation outside and think about how we can be detoxifying our environment. So we want to think about incorporating nature, incorporating natural light, uncluttering. So getting those countertops cleaned off so that our mind isn't, overwhelmed by a to-do list that we see in our visual field. Detoxifying potentially from sounds like, blaring music or beeping or the constant notifications on your phone. Finding a way to reduce the sounds and create natural sounds, create a healing, comfortable environment is going to be another kind of pillar of what we do at Marama. And then natural scents. So getting those air fresheners out, getting the toxic cleaning products gone, making sure that the scents, so thinking through our senses and everything we're taking in from the environment, the feel, the touch, the sounds, the smells, the sights, all of those, we want to reduce the amount of toxicity and nervous system irritation from those things so that we can optimize cognitive function and optimize that nervous system balance between fight, flight, freeze, and rest, digest, and heal. Most importantly, what we're creating is a healing environment for our nervous system. And then air quality is another thing to think about in our environment. I love the IQ Air, the GC Multi by IQ Air. They do not pay me. I just want everybody to know that it's a very good, high quality air filter that's available on the market. And, there's fires and things that happen that are outside of our control. And having if you live close to a freeway or a roadway, there can be petrochemicals. And having something like an air filter available and to use, particularly in the bedroom, or if you spend a lot of time in the living room, this can help us to reduce the amount of toxicity in the environment in a big way that can make a noticeable difference in your health. The next thing I want to share is about detoxing the mind. So I think many of us have experienced that ruminating, those negative thoughts, maybe about ourselves, about others. this judgment and this type of rumination can become toxic to the brain as well. We know that stress levels are directly associated with cognitive risk. We know that people who have a positive association, one of the tools that's easy, accessible, totally free, and with tons of fantastic research around it for cognition specifically, is a type of meditation called Kirtan Kriya. Tyler, if you would put that in the chat, I would be so grateful. So check out the chat. There's a link for that Tyler's giving us. On the left, you can see there's a picture of the crew at Marama doing the Kirtan Kriya meditation. We have caregivers and our residents suffering with dementia. We have them both do the Kirtan Kriya together because there's phenomenal research that shows an improvement in sleep, a decrease in depression, a reduction in anxiety, reduction in inflammatory genes, and upregulation of immune system genes, an improvement in insulin and glucose regulation. And then this is true for not only for people suffering with cognitive decline, but also for caregivers. For those of you who are caregivers, it's important to know that you are anywhere between 2.5 to 6 times the risk of people, the general population who are not caregivers, of being. You want to make sure that you are working hard to prevent dementia yourself. And this isn't just for you, right? This is for the rest of your family. We don't want you to become the patient. And so taking care of both the caregiver and the person suffering with dementia right now, using this free 12-minute intervention is something I highly, highly recommend. So I wanted to share another quick story about Christine, who moved in again in mid-2020, summer of 2020. And she's just been a delight to have at Marama. She's just a joy. Her daughter also moved her in. Often daughters are making these decisions. And just watching her transform, she had pain, she was off balance. She had been living at a previous residential facility, and her daughter was trying to get her to incorporate the Bredesen protocol at this more conventional facility. And they didn't have keto options. They didn't have organic food. Because she was unsteady on her feet, they actually discouraged her from getting exercise. So she was isolated to her room. Of course, it was during COVID as well, but they said, don't get out of bed, don't get out of your chair, because we don't want you to fall. And that just perpetuated and worsened her risk of falling because she was losing strength. And then she was eating, there was soft serve on demand. She was having cereal for breakfast, a sandwich for lunch, and pasta for dinner. And this is the opposite of a brain healthy diet. We couldn't out supplement this. We really needed her to get the support in an immersive way. And that was what her daughter identified. And when she moved into Marama, I have something to share from her daughter, just in her own words, but her pain was well reduced. She was more engaged socially. Her depression and anxiety went down. And even her family noticed when she would leave to go to family events that she was more engaged, she was more present, she had better memory. Her quality of life was exponentially better. And for her daughter, here's some pictures of both ladies. The one in the middle is both of them in our casita doing the exercises. Both daughters had peace of mind. They had this experience of knowing that their mothers were in the best place to get the best care, the best in what we know in science, right? It's not rocket science. We're just taking the best in the science and putting it where people with cognitive decline live in a safe and effective way. And what we see is a complete turnaround in quality of life, in cognition, and really, really inspiring results. And part of what I love, just because I can relate to them, is that the loved ones know that they're doing the best they can, that they're getting the best care for their mother or their sister or whoever it is that they know, who they're making decisions for and they're responsible for at this phase of life. So what we do that's different is it's memory recovery. This is really about healing. This is about getting better instead of just memory care and the expectation of decline. And this is a picture of, if you're interested in taking advantage of this, or if you or a loved one wants to know more about Marama, please go to the link here, maramaexperience.com/apply now. And we've partnered, we don't have space in San Diego at the moment. You're welcome to join the wait list. It's long, but in Kansas, we've partnered with this amazing facility in Wichita. I was so inspired by these gentlemen. They reached out and wanted to partner with us to expand this. I had been looking to expand Marama in San Diego, here in San Diego, and couldn't find a facility. And so these guys, after COVID, had an existing unit. They do an incredible job. And so we've partnered with them, and we have just 10 spots left there. So if you're interested, please go to the website and apply today. I'll take you through what that would look like. What we're doing is really different. That is going to be only the second facility in the world offering what we do at Marama, which is this immersive experience in the Bredesen protocol. And we have had people come from all over the states, from Hawaii, from New York, from Florida, from Georgia, from absolutely everywhere. And from Ohio, we had a couple come from Ohio, and recently from Utah. It's been so fun getting to know everyone. And yet, in my mind, I would never want my mom on the other side of the country. I want her down the street if, God forbid, she had to be in a facility. More than that, I want her at home. And so I would want to be doing all of these things as prevention. And yet I feel like there should be a Marama in every city, so that anyone who wants access to a place where you're getting the best in the science, you're getting the best in the lifestyle to support cognitive function and health as we age, should have access to that. And they shouldn't have to be separated from their families. So as much as we welcome everyone from everywhere, I really hope that we grow in a way that everyone has access to this. So you may have heard Momi chat about her experience with her mom. She was so inspired by her mom's transformation at Marama that she was on day one of the summit, and she is looking to create her own facility that she will own and operate in the LA area to get people access there. And she said to us a couple months after her mom moved in, Marama has been truly a blessing for my mother, who has been in the mid stages of dementia. She's been here for less than 2 months, and her progress is amazing. She's quicker, more alert, more physically active. The long-term memory has noticeably improved, as with the short-term memory. We're already seeing glimpses of it returning. Her mood and anxiety has subsided, which is huge. The caregivers are awesome. They have amazing patience with the residents, and they watch them get better and love it. I'm a believer more and more every day in the Bredesen protocol, and this treatment plan, this ability to do it, has been so incredible. I'm so grateful for making this vision a reality. So it's amazing seeing my mother come back to life, literally. So these are the kinds of things that our residents and their families are getting to experience. And we want to make sure that as many people as want to get that experience themselves. So a little bit more about the Clear Mind Center in Wichita, Kansas. I personally went out there and trained the staff. We had so much fun. This picture is of the little lake that's right outside the unit. So there's 15 beds, 5 of them are taken. We only have 10 left. It's a very home-like atmosphere where people feel very, very relaxed and at home. All of the rooms there are private. They all have private bathrooms. It's all ADA compliant, so there's no lip. One of the most common places for people to fall is in the bathroom. So they've really thought through creating a compliant, ADA compliant facility, of course, and with very few no trip hazards, right? All of that has been very thoughtfully considered. There's beautiful outdoor garden area and a courtyard with garden beds. And there's no stairs. This is one of the things that comes up here in San Diego. And part of why I might choose Kansas for my loved one is there's just no stairs. There's a lot less fall risk there. And it's just been very, very, very thoughtfully designed. And everyone there is so fun. So that Midwest just kindness it's real. And in this experience, what we've seen is a huge part of the benefit is the community. Everyone who moves in, everyone who shares in this, whether it's online, we have virtual programs, but in that residential setting, the community is so strong these ladies, it's mostly ladies, but we have gentlemen too. They are celebrating together. They are looking forward to things together. They're getting to know details about their lives and hearing and sharing in the stories of their families and the ups and downs and the day-to-days. And the goal setting really works. You know, they cheer each other on. We had a resident move in who has a MOCA of 0, a very, very low MOCA score. And I was not that hopeful that we could help her. And she just blew my mind. I will never tell anybody again that there's not hope, because she went from being essentially nonverbal to reading the name tag of one of our staff members. She started talking again, telling us she was too cold or too hot or hungry. And I worried when she moved in that the other residents would basically look at her and be worried that they were headed in that direction and that it would be kind of a downer for them. It was exactly the opposite. I mean, I can't tell you how many things I've been surprised by on this journey, but it was the opposite. They rallied behind her like you wouldn't believe. Every bit of improvement that she made, they celebrated with her. And you just see her light up, and you see them all light up. I mean, the smiles are just ear to ear. It's just incredible. Every time she made any sort of improvement or did something unexpected, everyone delighted in it, and they all have her back and are checking in on her. And I just couldn't have been more wrong about what her experience would have been like. And so we are just excited to help more people. Again, there are very few rooms available, and we are celebrating with this post-summit offer. We have an offer for you today. This won't last. For only the next 10 residents. Once we're full, we will move up to our regular community fee. So right now it's only $5,000 for the community fee. This is a $2,000 discount. So if you have any interest, this is fully refundable. You know, call, get the application in, and then we're going to set you up with a call to discuss your unique situation with Carrie. She is our director of operations. She's phenomenal. She's been doing this with us for several years. She's watched many, many people transform their lives. She's worked with many families in lots of different situations. So she can talk you through the process, make sure that you understand how to fill out all the paperwork, what's required in both Wichita, and if you would prefer to wait for a room at San Diego, we have that option too. So if you are like Richard and you want to remember the names of your grandchildren until the day you die, Marama or the Clear Mind Center in Wichita might be a good option for you to consider. We've had several, I can't even count the number of patients I've had where they're struggling to remember names, and some of them struggling to remember the names of family members. And sure enough, when they get on the program, they start remembering the names of their grandchildren. And this is just profound, especially for the adult children who get to see that relationship between their parent and their children. That intergenerational transfer of love and knowledge and experience and history is so profoundly valuable. You may have heard me share that I was at a funeral not long ago. A friend of mine lost her husband, and her brother-in-law, his brother, was sharing a eulogy, and he said, he was describing these text messages, these very unique text messages that he would get from his brother. And he was like, I would give anything to get one more of those text messages from my brother. And Marama, the Clear Mind Center, this Bredesen approach, this is that anything. This is that way to get one more birthday, one more anniversary, one more summer, one more event that you can share and experience, and then have that memory of yourself with your loved one. This is that way to do it. And we see this happen over and over again. It's one more birthday celebration where she remembers the names of everybody at the table, all of her friends and loved ones. We can do this. We can extend memory. We can improve health. We can do this consistently. And we see that over and over again. Now, the earlier, the better. I would love for no one to ever need to move into a place like Marama. But if you do, the option and the opportunity is there for you. If you're like Nora, Nora wrote to us that she She was looking to move into Marama originally because she wants to have her wits about her when her son graduates, or excuse me, her grandson graduates. She was highly involved in her grandson Tyler's life when he was an infant, and he ended up being diagnosed with cancer as a child with lymphoma, and they didn't think he was going to make it. Well, now he made it, and he is about to graduate from college in a year or two. And she wants to be there to see him walk across that stage. And she wants to have full capacity. She wants to have her balance. She wants to be there in person. And I'm really excited for Nora because she's in that stage where I think she'll be able to come to Marama or the Clear Mind Center. I don't think we've decided yet, but she will be able to come there, learn. She'll be, and we've had couples do this. I love this when a couple moves in and maybe one of them has a little bit more severe cognitive decline, the other has less, but they come together and they learn how to cook. They get into the routines and the exercise routines. They do all the worksheets and the CNS vital signs and the brain HQ, and they get all this benefit, but they live it, and then they can take it home with them and they can do it at home. And that's what I see happening for Nora. She's at a stage, her MoCA score is in the high teens, and I wouldn't be surprised if we can get her back to 30. And in that, she's going to have that independence for longer. Like, this is such a quality investment for her, because my hope is that she can come to Marama and return the independent living for a long time and take everything that we do at Marama home with her, be able to apply it at home. And so I wouldn't be surprised if Nora, if she gets to meet Tyler's children, right? If she gets a meaningful relationship, even with her great grandchildren, because she's putting the Bredesen approach to work. I just want to say thank you. Thank you so much for being here. The fact that you showed up tonight tells me that you are a pioneer in this space. You are the inspiration. You are why I do this, and you allowed me to fulfill my purpose, which is changing the narrative around what is possible for those suffering with dementia. Your care, your dedication, your perseverance, your love, your attention to your loved ones and to your own health is making a difference in the world. And I just couldn't feel more privilege and gratitude to now. I know there are a lot of them, and I'm so grateful for all of you who added to them. Is there a facility like Marama somewhere on the East Coast? I wish. Hopefully soon. We are looking to expand. So if if you know of anybody who has a facility that has an empty wing or an empty unit, we would love to partner with them. Right now, there are 2 facilities, one here in San Diego and the other in Wichita, Kansas. We've had many people move from the East. In Kansas also have. And so Kansas is a little closer, but we are hoping that we will have the opportunity to continue to expand. And this is another great question. I watched this summit, and can someone on a plant-based vegan diet go on a form of keto without consequences to cholesterol impact? Yes, yeah, that's a great question. It's really hard to do a vegan keto diet, but it's not impossible. I wouldn't recommend it long-term, but I actually don't recommend the ketogenic diet forever either, usually 3 to 6 months. So depending on why you're vegan, if it's, it's definitely the best environmental diet is a vegan diet. And what I usually recommend is people go back and forth from vegan to keto or plant-based to keto. And when you're in ketosis, maybe adding eggs or potentially, hopefully maybe some dairy if you can tolerate that. And then if you're switching back and forth, the impact on cholesterol for most people isn't bad. A great question about when will this be covered by insurance? I mean, not soon enough. It's just so frustrating to me. And all we can do, I am working as hard as I can, as fast as I can to prove this out through the science, through the research that we're doing, that this is something that can save money, right? Like it's expensive to be in memory care, conventional memory care. I saw Dr. Bredesen posted somewhere that I think it's like the average is $9,000. And somebody wrote back and was like, no, it's at least 10. And we see in San Diego, it's about 12,000 is the average memory care per month. I mean, this is a fortune. And if we can show, which I think we already have, that we can prevent the progression of disease, which we absolutely can. We can definitely prevent, we can stabilize, we can reverse it even, that is going to save so many families so much money, and it will save the insurance companies money. It will save Medicare money. Like, this is just, excuse the pun, it is a no-brainer, and I cannot wait until more people are on board. It just feels so clear and obvious to me, but I live it every day. I get to see this happen over and over and over again. So what types of breakfasts are served at Marama? We are using, come in a couple weeks if you can, and there are replays of our keto webinars on the Marama website, so you're welcome to go to those. There's going to be a bunch in the book, but I know that's like 9 months out. So the breakfast at Marama, we have organic keto oatmeal, which is a combination of flax seeds, chia seeds, and hemp hearts. That's kind of our like grain. And we do it with coconut milk, a little bit of monk fruit or allulose. Then there's a lot of egg dishes. I personally have an egg allergy, so I can't do any of those, and I have to come up with different options, but there's a ton of phenomenal egg dishes that they do for breakfast. They even do keto waffles and keto pancakes. I mean, they're super creative, and there's a whole team of people over there cooking. So the breakfasts are incredible. Oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't using presenter mode. I kind of thought I was. And then, if someone's had their gallbladder removed, can that affect detoxification? It can, but there's lots you can do. So working with a coach, working with and Dr. Bredesen has trained a ton of coaches and providers, and that is really a great place to go for help and support, especially if you have something like that, like kidney disease, or you have a gallbladder issue. If you are really concerned about your cholesterol, even if you're ApoE4 positive, there are ways to tweak the ketogenic diet a little bit that can definitely, there's really very few like contraindications to doing the ketogenic diet. Our bodies are designed to go back and forth from burning fat for fuel to burning sugar for fuel to burning fat for fuel. So don't be afraid of it. And we're going to discuss this a lot more in 2 weeks. So come for that keto diet conversation. Can I say something about CSM, which is cholestyramine? Is it only for mold, or can it be taken just to be sure we're detoxifying well? What do you suggest? It's better to ask the doctor. I really only use it for cholestyramine for ochratoxin. So if you don't have ochratoxin present, I don't think that you need cholestyramine. I think there's lots of other like chlorella and clay, and there's a great product, GI Detox by Biobotanicals, that I really like. So that's what I would recommend. I don't think you need cholestyramine. It can be a little bit much for some people. And then Kathleen asks, how do we know that spring water isn't contaminated with runoff? I understand that isn't regulated. Isn't it better to drink purified water? That's a really great question, Kathleen. I think there are certain, just like anything, there are certain brands that we can trust. And I trust Mountain Valley. The issue with Mountain Valley for me is it's my, I do a lot. I drive a Prius. I try to environmentally carting water around the world, driving it from Arkansas to San Diego in glass is an environmental disaster. So I feel really guilty. And I am actually playing for the book, some of the research I'm doing is trying some different water filters, and it's called True. Somebody might know who's here, but it's called True something. I just got it in the mail, and we're gonna hook it up this weekend. But that's findaspring.org. That's another way to look for good, high quality springs. So there is a certain standard. And yeah, I think if you're getting like regular spring water from the gas station, when you're stopping at a convenience store, that's not regulated. But just like supplements, they're not particularly well regulated, but there are certain brands that have a certain standard, and I think you can get that. What I worry about with purified water, AquaTrue, thank you, that's the one, thanks, Hope. What I worry about with purified water is like if you're using reverse osmosis, you're stripping it of minerals, and you have to add the minerals back. And then also, like, we are in San Diego, and you're wasting a ton of water. For every gallon of water you get, sometimes you're wasting 2 to 5 gallons. The AquaTrue is a reverse osmosis. You need to add the minerals back. And with that, I think the AquaTrue has modified the RO system so that you're not wasting I think you get 5 gallons and you waste 1. And, we'll use that to water the plants and stuff. And then can a vibration plate be used with osteoporosis? Yes, absolutely. Yes, yes, yes. In fact, there are vibration plates that are advertised specifically for osteoporosis. So it helps to engage the muscles, which then can help with osteoporosis. Do I have recommendations for cold or hot therapy? I really like the higher dosed sauna blanket. That's my favorite from like a hot therapy perspective. So it's a sauna blanket, so you can fold it up. It's low EMF, low VOC. It can go in a closet. I worry about wood saunas, especially community wood saunas, because they're porous. So whenever you sweat and other people sweat all over those wood saunas, and then they cool off and they heat up again, now you're inhaling other people's toxins. It kind of grosses me out. So I recommend having your own sauna at home, and that higher dose sauna, we have a code to get you a discount if you want there. We don't get paid, but we have a code. And then that is, for me, I find that personally, that's the best option that makes it the easiest, the simplest, the quickest, and it's under $500. What kind of glutathione do I find most absorbable? I'm a huge fan of ReadySorb glutathione and the Quicksilver glutathione. They're both liposomal. Oh, and Research Nutritionals also has one. They have them in individual packets. ReadySorb has that as well, because glutathione, liposomal glutathione, needs to be refrigerated. Otherwise, it's not going to be good anymore. And so the pump, Quicksilver has this great pump, and the taste isn't that bad. And Research Nutritionals, they have like a watermelon flavor. The taste isn't that bad. So those are the ones that I recommend. And ReadySorb is fantastic as well. So do I recommend any resources for figuring out which chemicals to avoid in cleaning products and personal care products? The EWG site is fantastic. The Environmental Working Group, EWG, and they have the Healthy Living app that's also really, really great in terms of being able to like scan a product and see, what rating does it get? How do I find a Bredesen trained doctor near you? So unfortunately, at the moment, what you need to do is sign up for Apollo, which is really high value, and I highly recommend. So that's signing up for Dr. Bredesen's his subscription, but that is really valuable. And then once you're behind the paywall, you can see where the doctors are and find someone near you. The other thing is, if you saw the summit, Dr. Dan LaPierre, he was also interviewed on the first day. He is physically in Louisville, Colorado, which is outside of Denver near Boulder, but he has he's basically licensed in most states now. And so he does a great job in a very high integrity way, seeing patients all over the country. So you can reach out to his office and see if you are in a state where he can help take care of you and get you everything you need to make the most out of the Bredesen protocol. What do you use to rid the body of mold, especially a patient that had exposure to Stachybotrys? Yeah, Karen, this is a really big conversation, and I would highly recommend working with a provider trained with Dr. Neil Nathan. So the name of the doctor who, and his book is called Toxic. I have it right behind me, but it's under a big stack. His book is called Toxic. Again, his name is Dr. Neil Nathan. And on his website, he has a list of providers who he has trained. And that is where I would go. Also, you can read the book Toxic. It's highly informative. And just like the Bredesen book, I've had people bring it into my office and say, this helped me so much. Somebody finally understands what I'm going through. And then we just basically put the icing on the cake by doing the testing and getting you individualized support. And if you're in California, my colleague here, Dr. Stephanie Lund is trained by Dr. Nathan and also Dr. Bredesen, and she can help with some of these things in case anybody's looking for a provider in California. Is it normal for someone to improve so quickly with toxic mold in the body? My husband has been taking cholestyramine for over 8 months and working on eliminating mold in the home. While I'm happy for your patient, I'm sad for us. Oh, Michelle, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make you sad. I meant to make you hopeful. It works. Sometimes it takes longer than others. Dr. Nathan always told us to tell patients, plan on at least 2 years. And with our cognitively declined patients, what we were doing was very aggressive. We were all in. We did everything, every test, every intervention. We just like we stacked every intervention on top of it, of themselves, so that we could get those results. We could basically show ourselves how fast we could get results if we didn't have to worry about resources. So that might be part of it. There might be a way to go faster, but with toxicity, you definitely want to go you don't want to go too fast, because it can create, if you can't eliminate, right? If you can't poop it out, pee it out, or breathe it out, or sweat it out, if you're just moving the toxins around, that can actually cause more cellular damage. And so you want to go at a pace that your body can tolerate. And that really requires, I think, working with a provider, because it's different for everyone. We typically do provocation. We do IV glutathione if the patient can tolerate that, or we'll do the Ready-Zorb or Quicksilver glutathione. And then we can do sauna or exercise. And then if people don't tolerate things, we just kind of back off of that and have them collect their first morning urine, because it should be the most concentrated. What's the safest way to detoxify from mercury after amalgam fillings have been removed? I really love, Chris Shade is at Quicksilver. He's a genius when it comes to getting rid of mercury. And working with a provider, I think is again important, and making sure the SMART protocol that the biological dentists use, you want to do that if you have the option. And then the IMD powder, the intestinal metal detox that Chris Shade created, is very, very effective and very safe. But working with a provider so you can make sure that you're, just supporting all of your detox organs and making sure you're doing that right is helpful. Should all fish be avoided during mercury detox? It just depends on how sensitive you are. And then Joan, what is the toxicity of marijuana smoke? I realize that all the secondhand smoke is toxic, but in addition to the smoke itself, there's a THC and the sickening smell. My neighbors smoke marijuana in the apartment building. I'm sorry, that's not that funny, because it sounds like you can't avoid it. And smoke, so any sort of smoke, I actually, if someone's getting the medicinal benefits of marijuana, I recommend that they eat it or have a tincture or a gummy or something like that, because no smoke is good for our lungs. So I highly recommend that people try to avoid the smoking, any of it. And I think what I would offer is an air filter. So outside, the solution to pollution is dilution. So getting outside, getting fresh air, letting fresh air in, opening doors and windows, that is a way to reduce the amount of toxicity, whether it's coming from your neighbor smoking pot or it's coming from the freeway. They start smoking, or right when you smell it, and keep it out, right? The more we can keep out, 75% of environmental illness is about avoiding exposure. But then if there's been an exposure, if there's mold in the house, if there's smoke in the house, if there's something in the house, if there's chemical smells, somebody wore perfume, open all the doors and windows, let it air out, let the breeze come through, hopefully put on fans, generate a breeze, and then an air filter if possible. All right, I'm gonna take one more question. Is gluten-free sourdough bread bad as well? Okay, so this is kind of in that fruit category, right? We have this awesome bakery here called Prager Brothers. It's just like the best bread, right? And bread is so good. Don't get me wrong. Like, I love a peach. I love cherries. They're all in season. Bread tastes great. Pasta tastes great. It's not that it's bad. Like, I don't want to say that foods are good or bad. It depends on our goal. If our goal is to reverse Alzheimer's, if our goal is to prevent memory loss, we want to get into ketosis, and that's a metabolic goal. And we're not going to get there if we are consuming carbohydrates. You don't need to be in ketosis forever. That's not the goal. You want to get into ketosis so you can get the brain healing benefits for a period of time. And then after that, you go in and out of your brother breads. By all means, have a slice, have a peach, have berries all summer long, but get back into ketosis. And like what I do for myself, I don't have a strong family history of Alzheimer's. I don't have memory loss at this stage, thank God. but I want to prevent Alzheimer's and I live this medicine. So quarterly, when I'm doing my coaching groups, I get into ketosis with them for 6 weeks or so. And I notice that I sleep better, I'm more alert, and my mood is better. So many things are so beneficial. And so I'm inspired to do it again. But of course, like the holidays come up, somebody's birthday comes up, I'm on vacation, and I fall out of it. I fall off the wagon, but that's okay because I get back on. And that's what I would encourage. It's not a dogmatic all or nothing, this food is good and that food is bad. It's about making the best choices that you can consistently and having some compassion for yourself and some grace. Like, I'm not going to get it right every day, but if more often than not, I'm making really good decisions for a brain healthy diet, I'm going to reap the rewards of that. And I'm going to prevent my cognitive decline or get my cognitive function better. And if somebody's in a more desperate situation, right, if they are more cognitively declined, we got to work harder. We got to be a little more committed in order to see the benefits, but it's still possible and we don't have to be perfect. And so that's just what I would offer around sort of like putting foods into categories of bad, right? And then, what if it's gluten-free? What if it's sourdough? Like, yeah, okay, enjoy it sometimes. And you're not going to get into ketosis eating bread. It's just not usually possible. It's so fun. Thank you for all of the engagement. It's just, I thank you for allowing me to live my purpose and be here with you and for just engaging with me in this way. I love it. And I'm so delighted to be here, and I couldn't do it if you didn't show up. So thank you, thank you, thank you for being here. And I can't wait to see you next week at the next one next week. We're doing, gosh, I forgot already, my cognitive function. I better get back into ketosis. So we'll see you next week. I know in 2 weeks we're doing keto. We're probably doing environment or exercise next week. Maybe communication. I don't know. I'll see you next week and I'll be looking forward to it. Take care, you guys. We'll see you soon.